Welcome to another episode of Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hediger. And today we are going to talk about something incredibly personal for so many of us. If you are a parent, you have probably wondered, am I doing this right? And if you're like me, you've already wondered that about 20 times today. And in real time, it's only 10:30. Of course, you want your kids to be happy. You want them to be healthy. You want them to be successful and capable. But you also want them to be well adjusted and be able to figure out life as it goes. So how in the world do we do this? I don't know, but our next guest does. We are so happy to have Dr. Tanya Farron with us, who literally wrote the book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, A Parent's Manual. Doctor, it's so good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So what exactly do you mean when you say well-adjusted child?
Right. Most people think that I mean a perfect child, but there's no such thing as perfect. Well-adjusted means that they're able to have strategies and tools to help them when life gets challenging or tough. So like a toddler might be able to have a calming strategy to calm themselves down, or a teenager might be able to know who to go to when they're having a difficult time.
And you have written this book because you have years and years and years of experience in not only being a mom, but an educator. Will you please tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So I started being a fifth grade teacher. So I was a fifth grade teacher for 14 years and a leader in my grade level. And then I moved into principalship as an elementary principal. Did that for about 7 or 8 years in public school. And now I'm a virtual middle school principal. I've been a virtual high school principal as well. So I have worked with kids and parents from ages 5 to 18 for almost 3 decades now.
And it's so interesting because you started in the classroom too.
Yes.
You weren't just an administrator right out of the gate.
Right.
So you've kind of held every position in education that you can. What are some patterns you have noticed throughout your career that's pretty universal for most kids?
Right. So like some things that they need. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that kids, regardless of their age, that they need. They need structure and routine. They need your love, your care, your compassion, and your guidance. And those are some basic things that all kids need. And I really, when I was an elementary principal, I would have never been a high school principal. I was like afraid of that. These kids were the same. They needed the same things.
Kind of sounded like the same things that we as adults need,
Right?
too.
It's so true. Yes.
So when did you get the idea to put down everything you've learned through your career into an actual book?
Well, you know, it was probably about 2015. I came home from work and I thought, I keep telling parents the exact same thing over and over and over. And I wrote all of these things down in a notebook and put it in a drawer. And then during COVID, when we had time, and it was a horrible time, but we had time, I wrote the book and got it, self-published it in 21 and have been talking to parents ever since about it. They're just tried and true things in there.
What were those things back in 2015 that you were telling parents over and over and over again?
Sure. There's several things. The first thing is creating structure and routine in your home helps kids. We like to know what's coming next, right? You as an adult like to know, I like to know. Kids want structure and routine. Building connections with your kids. I want to build connections with people. I want people that care about me, that are around me. Partnering with the education system, teaching parents how to do that, how to be partners with their schools and their teachers. And really, about parenting as a lifetime commitment. That's the very first chapter in my book because it doesn't end. All of a sudden, it just doesn't. Your kids don't turn 11 and then you go, well, they don't need me anymore.
You're good.
You're
Go
good.
ahead, kid.
So those were just some of the things of the conversations that I would have with parents. And, I call them mom-to-mom conversations, mom-to-dad conversations. Once I could, as a principal, get parents to understand that I'm a parent too and that we're just talking about finding solutions, then parents would be more open to have those conversations, and those were the things that we would talk about.
And what were some of the biggest problems or challenges maybe that you noticed kids were having in the classroom that one-on-one conversation with mom or dad really helped?
Sure. Well, a lot of it is that structure and routine at home. And so I talked a lot to parents about that, finding that time for kids to do their homework. And it's hard. A lot of kids want that support. They want mom or dad near them. A lot of parents work 2 jobs, right? Or they work later at night, so they have to figure out, or second shift, so they have to figure out how to create that structure and that routine in their home to help support them with homework, with having their meals on time, maybe getting their clothes ready for the next day, being prepared. Because kids would come into school and they would have meltdowns. They would be upset. They would be tired. They couldn't find their homework. Then they would have maybe a slight tantrum or something like that, or they would cry because they were disappointed that they weren't prepared or ready for the day. And so building in those structures and routines every day is so important for our kids.
I'm already seeing a mental picture evolve of sometimes how my mornings go at home. And the best mornings in my house are what you just said, the prep the night before. We already have the clothes laid out, the shoes laid out, the socks laid out. We know that today is a sports day or this day.
Yeah.
And my kids are very, very little. It sounds like you're saying as they go into elementary school, middle school, and high school, those things can help too.
Yes, they can. Absolutely.
But evolving.
Right? So the toddler, you've got the preschool, handout, right, that says tomorrow's water day. And so you get everything ready for preschool. But in elementary school, you might have read on the website or got a text from the teacher that says what that is. Maybe the child starts to help you a little bit more, like, let's get your things together, right? You're reminding them. And then in the older grades, you're teaching them strategies of how to be organized. So maybe they've got a planner that they're writing things in and you're reminding them to check it. So you're more hands-on when they're little and a lot more guiding when they're older.
Before we go too far into this conversation, where can people get your book?
My book is on Amazon, so you can go to Amazon. You can just type in my name, Dr. Tanya Farron, and it will pop up, along with a few other things, but you can purchase it from Amazon.
I want to tell you a funny story.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of meeting you more than a year ago.
Right.
And you gave me this book.
Yep.
And I've had it out either on my nightstand as I've thumbed through it or in my nightstand. And it was maybe 2 months ago. My little boy got in my nightstand and pulled it out and was walking around our house with it. And sometimes my kids, when they hold on to something, then they want it in the car to go to school with them. And that's a battle I'm not going to fight. If you want to take the Well-Adjusted Child's Guide with you in the car, we're going to take it. And he held on to it that entire drive. And then it fell and kind of landed in that perfect spot in the car where it just sticks. And I kept seeing it for a few days. And I'm like, this is God's way of saying, call Dr. Tanya, have her back on the podcast if I keep seeing it over and over.
I love that.
But I love that you've now had this out for 5 years now. What are some of the breakthrough moments that you have had with other parents when they're reading through some of your resources?
There's a lot of parents, they get emotional sometimes. Some parents say, I wish I would have known this when my kids were littler. But again, the information in here is timeless. And I say that often because, there are things that we all need as adults. And so it kind of can move on to adulthood. So you're never too late if you're going to start working on your parenting. And I tell them that, you're never too late for that. And I remember having a conversation with a high school parent about her son who wasn't doing very well in high school. And she said, I don't understand this. This was different than last year. And we started digging into some of the questions. And I said, well, what's different this year than last year? And she said, well, last year I used to sit with him and do his work. And now I'm busy. And I said, I think he still needs your support. And he did. And she sat with him and just was there, like emotional support for her son, guiding him through step by step. And then he graduated, and it was a wonderful day for both of them, So I've had a lot of really good things that have come out of working with parents.
And with that, I have empathy for both that son who is now graduated from high school, and that is amazing because I'm sure he wanted to say to his mom, I want you to sit with me.
Yeah.
But a 14-year-old boy, I'm guessing those words are hard to come out for some.
Sure.
But I also have immense empathy for the mom in this situation because she said, I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell parents who are doing everything they can to put gas in the car, to make ends meet, to show up for work every single day while they're constantly juggling so many things, maybe caring for an elderly parent themselves, where they don't have the same 24 hours in a day that some other people might, where they can sit with their kids.
And so that to me would be setting up a boundary with your kids and with your whoever your life basically, and reflecting as a parent, what do I need? Who do I need to support? Where's the time that I can give to other people? And so having that conversation with your child is important. And that's the communication piece is so huge when you have a child. And saying, here's where I'm at. I need to help you. I want to help you. I have all of these things to do. How can we make this work? And I bet together you can come up with a plan. It might be once a week, twice a week. It might be something like that. Maybe it's every day from 5 to 5:30. I'm going to put my phones down and I can help you. Just really opening that communication and talking.
I really like that because my husband has a very challenging and unpredictable schedule. It's all over the place all the time. And with our two little kids, they don't understand why daddy's not always home, whether at night, on the weekends. And even at their young age, I have explained to them, daddy is helping other people right now. How lucky are we that daddy is able to help other people? And I've noticed the tantrums, especially with my 3-year-old boy, are so much better when I explain where daddy is. And even I've shown him, we'll take a drive, daddy is here, physically showing him the building instead of not addressing it at all.
And people think you can't communicate with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old.
Oh, you can.
And you can explain things. And once you start that type of parenting with your child and have open lines of communication, you're going to continue to build on that as they age. And you want that. I always say little kids physically need us, right? Your kids are climbing on you. When you get home, they're hanging on you, they're climbing on you. They've got your leg while you're cooking dinner, all of that. When they're older, they need you emotionally. But they need to be able to talk to you. And you have to keep those doors open and those lines of communication open. So I love that you did that. Just explain to them and talk to them about that. I was a parent, obviously. I have 2 daughters, and I was a teacher, and I'd leave the house very early. And when they were little, I thought I was doing them a favor by just scooping them up in their PJs and taking them to childcare. But inevitably, my youngest would have a meltdown in the car the whole way. And I was like, I do not understand this. You're in your pajamas. I've done everything. I've scooped you up. You're in the car. You have your granola bar. And we are not 1 mile from the house. And tears have and I'm like, I do not understand this. And finally, I just talked to her and I said, why are you crying when we leave in the morning? And she's 2. And she says, I need stretch time. And I said, what is stretch time? I don't know what that means. Well, gosh, I got it after we sat for a minute. And I said, you want to sit on the couch? Yes. In your PJs? Yes. You want me to get you dressed before we go? Yes. So I have to wake you up earlier? Yes. I didn't know what stretch time meant. No. But doesn't it make perfect sense? Like, I don't get up out of bed and leave the house, but I like to have my coffee in the morning, and I watch KMOV and while I'm waking up and drinking my coffee, right? And I'm watching the news, and I ease into my day.
So many things I really appreciate about that is you're watching Channel 4.
Yes.
Keep doing it. We love that. Secondly, you acknowledge that even though you are a doctor and an educator, that you don't know it all.
No.
And you didn't say it, but I'm inferring that you had to then parent your two girls differently.
100%.
The older one was okay with the scoop in the
Yes.
jammies and go.
Yes.
The younger one needs a different routine.
Yes. And that's why that communication is so important. And no, I am not a perfect parent. I've never, ever felt that way, but I know that there's things that we can do to help improve our parenting. And I've learned from so many people, you know, by being an educator.
And you are going to continue to learn because as the first chapter says, it is a lifetime commitment.
It is.
It never ends. My mom is listening to this in real time and she's like, yeah, Laura, you've already called me like 4 times today. We are here sitting with Dr. Tanya Farron, a local gal born and raised in St. Charles County. And now she has literally written the book on raising the well-adjusted child. You can get it right now on Amazon. We are going to take our first break. And as we do that, I encourage you to think about maybe someone who is expecting a child or a newer parent or even a seasoned parent. I know there are parenting challenges at any stage. I would encourage you to share this conversation with them and maybe also tell them about this book, again, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child. When we come back, we are going to dive into some very important discussion questions so you can reflect even more on situations that have happened with your own kids. We'll be right back with more of Live with Laura. Welcome back to Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hediger, sitting across from Dr. Tanya Farron as we discuss parenting. And Doctor, something that's really interesting about parenting today versus when my mom was a new mom is there's a lot of information out there. I can't tell you how many parent influencers I follow online or parents.com or this doctor or that doctor or this doctor, which is great, but then it can be really, really overwhelming.
Right, it can be.
What advice do you have for newer parents who are trying to do everything right, not necessarily perfect, but do the right things when they are inundated with so much from every which way?
Right, right. I think what's most important is you have to find the model that works for you. And that is something on this parenting journey in these last 5 years as I have worked with so many people. There's a variety of different parenting styles that you can find online. And then I also want people to beware also of, you know, a lot of the things that are online. Do not fall prey to the perfect mom that never has a child, that never has a meltdown, because they're children. They're going to. It is going to happen. So do not compare yourself in your life to someone else's that you're seeing on social media, you know?
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I am the baby of my family and I was never around younger kids once I really became in high school or college. So I had a ton of misconceptions and judgment that I thought every child should be sitting there like a little lady or a little young man.
Right.
And it's a direct reflection of the parent if they are not. And I've realized I was an idiot. And how terrible of me for ever thinking that.
No, not terrible. You just didn't know.
Pretty terrible. But I'm glad that you say kids are kids.
They are.
And they're supposed to test limits and boundaries.
They are.
When it comes to parenting styles, we talk so much about gentle parenting and then the helicopter parent and even things like authoritarian or authoritative parenting. Yeah. Can we kind of be a little of both?
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when we were talking about me parenting my daughters 2 different ways. There's not one size fits all. There's not one model that's going to last forever. I don't feel like that there is. I think that you have to try different things. And as our children grow and age and learn, you know, we have to change our routines and our models that we're using. It's evolving. It's ever evolving. It's a relationship. It's growing. It's building.
What about for parents who have different genders of kids? My husband has said to me many times, you're so much harder on her than you are on him. And my husband could be very correct in that. What advice do you have for people trying to navigate that?
Well, I don't, and I don't know your whole family dynamic, but what I would say is, that's a reflective piece for you. That's for you to reflect on and think about those conversations or, how you're disciplining or, the expectations of your children. And so you have to reflect on that and think about that. And, are you really seeing that? And maybe have a conversation. I know they're little. But talk to them a little bit about it, When mommy asks you to do this and you're not doing it, and then I raise my voice and then it makes you do that, why can't you just do it the first time? Maybe ask that question. I don't know. You never know what how they're gonna respond. You can't predict the response. But thinking about that yourself is something that I think is important to do.
I am every day on that. And one way you can do that is something that you were very intentional about with your book. You dedicated pages at the end called So What's Next? Questions for Discussion. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. So this book is modeled for parents. It is modeled for parent groups, church parent groups, school groups, PTOs, PTAs, any group like that. Schools, and I'll be going to some schools in this fall and talking with their parent groups about the book. But the back has discussion questions. Every chapter has 6 questions for you to start thinking about the content in that chapter, and so that you can start creating your parenting plan. We plan everything else. Laura, I'm sure you planned your clothes for this week. You've got the calendar lined up at home, but did you put your parenting plan together? So these questions in the back help you develop that parenting plan for you.
How would you define a parenting plan?
Right. So going through and reading the chapters. So in the book, there's chapters like structure and routines, building connections, relationships with schools. And so if you're in that chapter and you're thinking, I'm going to go back and answer these questions and think about, how am I handling these situations with my kids? Do I need to establish boundaries? Do I need to establish more routines? And writing those things out. And so I think that's important for you to do as a parent, to go through and do that. And then they change. They adjust.
We have the plan in place. I thought we were all good on it, and then, here we go. We're changing again. You've used the word boundaries a few times in this conversation. And I think just in the last 3 or 4 years in general, society has been talking about putting more boundaries in place to protect inner peace. How do you effectively put in a boundary and stick to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. You have to have, I'm going to say you have to have some discipline yourself for that, but you can adjust your boundary if it doesn't work, So don't think that you put a boundary in place and, now it's perfect or it's not perfect, I'm just going to throw it out. You can adjust it. And so, I tell parents a lot, it's hard, right? Especially elementary, middle school kids. You come home from work, your kids are by themselves. You walk in the door, they're excited to see you. They've got things to tell you, or they've had a crisis at school and they're crying, or whatever the case may be. And you might just need 10 minutes. Let me just change my clothes. I want to get out of my work clothes. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so I tell parents to talk to their kids, like, can I have a boundary here? Can I come in and do the things that I need to do really quick for myself, take a few deep breaths? I want to brush my hair, put it in a ponytail, whatever I want to do. And then I will give you 15 minutes and you can tell me all about your day.
Let's dig into that even more, because I feel like what I see on social media and what I read in general is, especially moms have to be selfless all the time. The kids should always come first. And some people would even argue, how dare you take those 10 minutes? Your child has been waiting for you all day. You are here to say that we're allowed to do it?
You're allowed to do it, in my opinion. I mean, can you pour from an empty cup?
A lot of women keep trying
They keep trying to pour from an empty cup, but we can't. We cannot do that. And I think your kids would prefer to have your time and attention when you're ready and fully invested in hearing them and being a part of that conversation with them than you walking in the door. I mean, envision the two different, right? You're walking in the door and they're following you and then you're upset and you're like, just give me 5 minutes. Come on. Like, hold on, right? That's a really negative conversation that you're having with your kids. Yet the one where you walk in and you go, hello, I need my 10 minutes. I'll be right back. And you go in your bedroom, whether you're breathing, you're doing whatever you need to do for 10 minutes. And then come back and sit down. I'm ready. Tell me all about your day. Which one do you want?
That one.
That one, right? So are you able to give that to your kids because you've given to yourself? And I'll tell you just a little story, and I put it in my book. You know, our life got really crazy because as parents, you want to give your kids everything. I wanted my kids to be in every event, everything. And I finally cut it and said, stop on Sundays. Sundays were done. And I really was worried about coming to my family with this because I thought I'm going to have mutiny on the bounty, right? And I said, you can have it whoever you want over. We want to go to church, and I want to be home for the rest of the day on Sundays. Guess what? The whole family loved it because my husband's watching sports. He's having a great time. He's loving life. I wanted to cook. I love to cook. I had Frank Sinatra playing, cooking in the kitchen. I made a beautiful meal on a Sunday. I wasn't rushing anywhere. My kids were in their rooms, and they were probably 10, 12 when I implemented this in my life. And then I'd get dinner started, and I would go lay in my bed and take a rest. And I'd lay with all my beautiful books, and my kids were doing their thing. And they loved it, and they wanted Sundays.
And they asked for them, I'm guessing.
They wanted Sundays.
I need advice on this because I'm not at that stage, but plenty of my friends are. Sports are crazy.
They're crazy.
Extracurriculars are nuts.
Yeah.
In a town like St. Louis, and I did not grow up with hockey in my hometown, I have been flabbergasted by some of the schedules that especially hockey kids have to do. I know there are plenty of parents sitting there saying, I wish we could have that Sunday day at home, but I can't because there's this tournament, that tournament, this tournament, that tournament. And when you get so caught up in it, you think if I don't put my child in that, then it's done. They're never going to make a team again. How do you handle all of these feelings and pulls that feel like you can no longer be in control of your own schedule and lifestyle for your kids?
And you're right. And I was a club sport mom. I get it, you know, and my husband still coaches with my oldest daughter as well. So there's a lot that goes on. But I had to set some boundaries for myself as well as for my family. You know, someone has to get the groceries. Someone has to kind of tidy up. You know what I mean? Like, and that was my role. That was what I decided that I would, you know, I went to a lot of tournaments. I was there a lot. But if I knew that there was 3 games on Sunday, my husband was going to go to them, I might have stayed home for the first one if they were in-town games. And I would, you know, and I would explain that to my family and have a conversation. Listen, I want to get things ready for you to go to school on Monday, this, that. I need to do a little reset at home. So I'm going to step out of this one game. I wish you luck. I'm going to watch it on Game Changer while I'm running around the house or whatever the case may be. And, you know, they were fine. Like, they understand that, you know? And so I think finding time, like, you've got to find what works for you. My schedule doesn't always work for everybody else, but you have to find what works for you. So maybe yours is a Thursday night. You know, when my child was younger, when we just had one, we implemented no TV Tuesdays. And we didn't turn the TV on. Maybe you implement no phones Tuesday. And you sit with your kids and have that quiet family time.
I wanted this to come up, technology. When you were raising your girls, it was a different time.
It was.
When I was being raised, it was a vastly different time. Screen time is very, very scary for a lot of parents, but it's there. What advice do you have for parents who are trying to navigate when to get a phone? Do I give them a tablet? Do I check it all the time?
You know, I love that you brought that up because that is really, it's very important as a parent, and there's a lot of things that you can do as a parent. I believe now that there are there are phones that you can give to your kids that are just texting, that you can purchase, that just text mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, something like that. You can also put parent controls on cell phones because we don't have landlines anymore. My kids were probably 10 and 12 when they got their first phones. So we did have a little era of the cell phone as teenagers growing up. And we did implement there's no phones at the dinner table. And we still implement that to this day, unless someone is waiting for an emergent, like if your husband was on call, I know he's important what he does. Maybe he has to have his phone at the table on this night or whatever. But we implemented that right away. Even with friends that came over as teenagers, they all knew that the phones went in the other room. And we had dinner together as a family. So I think implementing some of those things and making sure that you are, setting boundaries and time. So using the phones is very stimulating for our brains, right? We love it. But we're old enough to know that we have to stop it. There's a cutoff time. Kids don't. It's stimulating. It's exciting. I want more. I want more. I want more. And then it becomes addictive to them. And so it's very important that early on you are not giving them that as entertainment when you are doing other things. Like, I really recommend that parents, when you go shopping, don't give them the tablet and the cart. Teach them how to behave in the store. It takes time. It's okay that your kid had a tantrum in the store. It's okay. They're kids.
Is it okay for you to then tell off another person who's judging the kid and you, just asking for a friend?
I think that you could. I think that you could say, we're having a moment here.
Enjoy
You're
the
having
show.
a moment here. I'm sorry that we're having a moment here, but we're decided to have a moment right now. And I will tell you this story, and it's kind of funny, but we were in the store with my kids, and my daughter conked her sister in the head with a box of fruit snacks. And I said, that's enough. Like, stop it. If you do that again, we're leaving the store. And this is the piece that parents, we got to stick to. If I make the threat, we're leaving the store, you got to do it.
Did you do it?
She conked her on the head again, and we left.
So did the cart stay right there?
Unfortunately, it did.
And you seethed the whole way home.
Because you know why? I had to go back.
Darn right.
Get all those groceries eventually.
Yes.
But I did. And we, it's hard. As a parent, we sacrifice ourselves in those situations, but we're teaching a lesson to our kids about, consequences, right? And that was a consequence.
I am in that stage right now. Last night, my mom was a special education teacher in the classroom for 25 plus years and then became the special education administrator. My sister is a child psychologist by trade and now an elementary principal. So I learn a lot through them.
Yes.
But my mom has always said something along the lines of, Laura, think about how long of a day your kids have had at daycare. It's just like, you've had a really long day at work. And sometimes you want to just chill and just be. So we've started allowing Miss Rachel. But last night, my son got home, wanted a snack. We had a snack. Then he wanted another snack, had another snack, wanted another. And I said, buddy, that's it. We have to have dinner. I want another go-go for yogurt. We need dinner. The screaming starts. And I said, if that continues, Miss Rachel's going bye-bye. Continued. I turned it off. And then I paid for it for the next 20 minutes. But in those moments, I kept thinking, what's the alternative? Another snack, no dinner? Advice? Because he still didn't eat the dinner, I'll be honest with you.
Right. And that's okay. I think that's okay because, you were setting a boundary with them, right? You're saying if you're going to continue to do this, then I'm going to have to turn it off. We're not doing this. We're not having all of these snacks before dinner. We're going to eat a healthy meal. And the conversation afterwards is, I turned this off because of this and this and this.
That's what I need to be better at.
Right.
The
Why
conversation in calm afterward. You just saw the light bulb.
Yes, I did. I did see that. And this is the work I love, right? This is that moment where you go, let me explain to you why I did this. And let me explain to you why it's important that we have dinner. right? And I want you to know, I want to make it clear, like, I love technology. I'm a virtual middle school principal. I work from home. I love my job, you know? I love technology. I love TikTok. I love all of that. But our kids they don't know the boundaries. So we have to teach them those boundaries and safety things. But I love that you brought that up, because that is the piece, that communication piece of explaining to kids, like, why this happened, why is this important? And that whole piece of not having technology at the dinner table is kids are missing out on conversations and problem solving. Remember when you were a kid and the uncles came to dinner and maybe they got in an argument about a sports team and who liked this team and who liked that team, and they argued and maybe yelled, and then all of a sudden everyone's friends again by the end? Well, kids miss that if they're glued to a screen. They're not part of that problem solving. That's why our kids are having meltdowns in schools, is they don't know how to resolve conflict peacefully or how to express themselves. And they want everything immediate, and they don't have to share. Immediate, don't have to share. So think of those things. Those are some of the things. That's why I really discourage having tablets and phones at dinner tables, at restaurants. Yes, it's hard to manage your kid. It is. You're going to say, sit down 25 times. Put that down 25 times. Don't eat that. Don't lick that. Don't touch that. Stop doing that. Get back over here. We're not going to the bathroom again. Right? I've done that.
And it's nice to hear that you have done that, because when it is happening, you feel like you're the only
You do feel like you're the only one.
And I've listened to enough of your interviews. You have said you're not alone. You're not alone. And in the hardest of hard moments, you really do feel like you are on an island of not misfit toys, but screaming children. I have learned so much in this conversation, and I am thrilled that we still have a few more moments together. We're going to take a quick break, come back with more of Live with Laura and Dr. Tanya Farron. We have a few more minutes together with Dr. Tanya Farron, who wrote the book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child. And Doctor, through the majority of this conversation, we've been speaking as though we're talking to all families that have that nuclear family where both parents live in the same household with their kids. But the truth is, in 2026, families look very, very, very different.
Yes.
There are so many blended families, and you would like to think that all the parents involved are best friends and the focus is always on the child, but that's not reality. What is some advice you give to parents navigating blended families?
Yeah, I love that you asked me this. I'm not an expert in that area, but I have learned so much in the last 5 years. So I have my own podcast that's on YouTube. It's called Parent to Parent. And I have interviewed a gentleman named Dr. Steve Hutchins, and he has written a book called The Mosaic Family. And it is a story, it is his work and his thesis about blended families and how each person brings a piece of them to this blended family, right? To bring it together to make this mosaic. And, really understanding and going in and learning more about the person who is coming in to be a part of the blended family, or all the family members, actually. So my first recommendation is find some books like that, and I will give you that recommendation. I had shared that with you on the break, but I will give that to you. I think that's important to learn about that, and I'll be having him on as a guest as well on my show.
Good. I will be listening to that, The Mosaic Family. And with blended families, it's not just necessarily, there's so many aspects to blending a family. In my case, my husband was married before and has a son. I came in with no children. Others could have a mom with children, a dad with children. They come together, they have a child. I just never realized how many different ways families can look today. And every single one is unique.
They are, and I love that you said that they're unique, because they are unique. And there's a lot of family models, like you said. There's a lot of family models, and I think what's really most important that parents have to see, and when I've worked with parents who are blended, divorced, I always tell them that we have to have this discussion with the student in mind, or the child in mind. Usually I'm working with a student with the child in mind. And we have to do what's best for the child. And that's the hardest thing, is to get the parents to get rid of the rest of the stuff that is, that they're bringing up, the past traumas, the past abuse, the past sadness that they have in their life, but to really get rid of that and focus on the child that the center decision is being made for, and what is really best for this kiddo, and who has talked to this kiddo to see what do they want. And what's hard sometimes is that child gets put in the middle, and that child is going to say, oh, well, I'm going to say this to Laura, and then, but I'm going to say this to Dad, but then I'm going to say this to Mom, because I don't want to hurt any of their feelings. So having those open line of communication and talking to them and saying, listen, you're not going to hurt my feeling. And you have to be strong as a parent, because it's going to hurt maybe. But I want to know what you really want in this situation. Maybe you want them to be in hockey and they want him to be in soccer or something like that. And he wants to play the piano. What is really the best decision for the child?
The entire theme of the conversation we have been having over the last nearly hour now is conversation.
Yeah.
It all goes back to talking. You and I are comfortable communicators. Not everyone is. So if you are a parent that maybe is the people pleaser, the it's fine, everything's fine parent, what advice do you have, or even introverted, what advice do you have for parents who are not as comfortable starting those conversations and keeping them going with their child, their stepchild, even their parent, their co-parent?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of little things that you could try, in my opinion. The first thing that you could try, if you're not a good communicator and you don't like to sit down and have a conversation, you could have a notebook. You could write some of your things down that you want to talk to them about, and you could pass it over to them and say, can you read this today when I'm at work, and maybe write your answer in of how you feel. I mean, that's an easy way that you can do something like that, to where you don't want to have that face-to-face, but you may feel confident behind writing it, or maybe you can get your words out better, because sometimes you just can't get your words out right. I think that's one of the things that you can do. Setting some specific time aside and say, I want to talk to you, Johnny, tomorrow at 3 o'clock about your extracurricular activities, and we're going to make some decisions on that. So will you come prepared with what you want to talk about, and I'll think about what I want to talk about? These heat of the moment conversations don't work.
No,
Out of the
don't end
moment
well.
Conversations are best, and it's hard because it gives everybody time to reflect, to think, and to see, what do I really want to say? What do I really want here? And then I also think, go to a therapist as a parent. Go to them and say, I'm struggling with this. How do I do this? How can I have this conversation? Maybe you get a mediator. Maybe you get a mediator that helps mediate the conversations. I work with a lady named Jackie Hallberg, and she is a family mediator. And she's been on my show as well. And she works with families to kind of help get the rest of the stuff out, and let's get to the heart of the conversation here.
And that shows so much growth as a person to say, I do need help.
It does.
We would never look at someone with blood coming out of their leg who's going to a hospital and be like, they're weak, going to get help. What are you doing? It's kind of the exact same thing when we invest in therapy and getting someone who has better expertise than we do to help us navigate situations.
Remember, our only parenting experience is by how we were raised. And some people have great family models, and some people have very destructive, traumatic family models. So, if you don't know, ask someone for help. Start grabbing some books. Grab my book. Start with that and start reading it, and add, just go through some questions. Like, I give my tried and true life in there, really, My successes and my failures are all in that book.
And it's so nice hearing the failures, too.
Yes.
Of course, we want to celebrate your successes. But when we hear that this is hard from other people, it's like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one who thought this. I have said to my mom, since welcoming now both of my children. I'm like, I wasted so much time, effort, and energy when I was pregnant focusing on these silly things that never mattered. Why did I focus on that? She's like, well, I couldn't really tell you that's not going to matter when you're in the moment.
Right.
But that's what leads me to my next question. What is something that you notice parents fixate on that really down the road does not matter? Or what is something parents should focus more on that, yes, does set the stage for down the road?
Those are two really good questions. I think sometimes we worry too much about the little things. You know, those little things take over in our mind. You know, small nuances about our kiddos. You know, what are they wearing? You know, did I get them the right breakfast today? You know, things like that, that we put pressure on ourselves. I remember I was talking to my therapist once, and I was explaining the struggles of my day. You know, how could I get them out of the house and do these things? And you know, I was a very busy administrator in person, and when my kids were little, and I was staying late and working early, and she said, do you think your kids could get their own breakfast? But what kind of mom would I be? You know, like, what would they think? And she's like, they can grab a granola bar, Pop-Tart, cereal. Well, what would happen if they didn't eat breakfast? And I was like, right. I was like, world's worst mom ever, right?
Thinking their little tummies
and she
grumbling.
said, well, they'll eat lunch at school. Like, they're going to be okay, you know? And I think sometimes we worry about that perfectionism as a parent, and we're not perfect. We can't be perfect, you know? But if I had a conversation with my kids and said, listen, I can't make you breakfast anymore. What do you want? You want cereal? You want lunch? You want a Lunchable? What do you want for breakfast? A hot dog? What are you going to eat? Okay, let's get out of the house, right?
And that also gives them more independence.
Yes. Now they're having some responsibilities, right? We're teaching them to survive, right?
But I love that you sat down with your therapist, someone removed and not caught up in the emotion that you experience every single day on repeat. And she just makes the most common sense statement of, can't they get it themselves?
Right. They're like 5 and 7. Could they grab something from the pantry?
And if not, can you just put it on a lower shelf where they definitely can reach it? As we wrap up this conversation, what is the best parenting advice you have ever received or given?
Oh, well, I would say from my mom would probably be, you are your child's first teacher. She has drilled that into my mind. She proofread my book, several times, and she was not an easy critic. She didn't say, oh, loved it, great. She said, nope, change this. What about this? What about that? And she said, every page, you are your child's first teacher. They are watching everything you do.
And that's amazing, but also really scary.
Yeah.
And Dr. Tanya's mom is here right now. Carol should be so proud. I think the tears are going to start. This has been such a fun conversation. Will you please let our listeners and viewers know again how they can get your book, how they can get in contact with you, and where they can listen to your own podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can grab my book on Amazon, and it's just type in my name, Tanya Farron, and it'll pop up there. You can also go to YouTube, Parent to Parent Talks. It's a parent with a number 2, Parent Talks is my YouTube channel, or you can go to my website, creativelivingideas.com. And you can check out all of those things there, too.
Thank you so much for the gift of your time and for putting together such a beautiful resource that my son so lovingly carried around to say, Mom, work on it. Again, the book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, A Parent's Manual. We appreciate it. And we appreciate the gift of your time, too, St. Louis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time, thank you for listening, thank you for learning, and thank you for being Live with Laura.